This episode of the Cartoon Palooza is brought to you by Clayton, who for $1 per month is able to get a special privilege and suggested this month's theme, which is Saturday morning cartoon movies. If you'd like to know more and find out ways that you can get a special privilege, all you gotta do is go to my Patreon page and donate $1 per month, or at least just find out more information and let somebody else know who might be interested as well. Link is in the description box below. I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P and you're watching a Cartoon Palooza editorial. This month it's all about Saturday morning cartoon movies, and I gotta be honest with you, when I'm watching all these films, I really had time to think about the things that separate the good adaptations to the bad ones. And then I really thought about it. What are those differences? Hey, why don't I make a video out of it? People seem to like when I do that, don't you think? Yeah, so let's talk about that. When I'm talking about these movies, I mean the theatrically released films specifically. Now don't get me wrong, there are plenty of good direct-to-video movies and TV specials. However, talking about those movies is different from comparing them to the big screen movies that I'd rather make a separate video on. I am open to discussing movies that led to the creation of animated series like Jimmy Neutron, movies during the show's original run, and even movies remade years later. I'm also not going to be discussing how shows based on books or other media impact their adaptations. It's focused on the animated series, and if it's based on a remade animated series like Alvin and the Chipmunks, yeah, you're going to have some consideration to that, but you don't want that to be the primary focus. You want to judge it as its own thing in relation to the movie, and it's going to be very confusing. Now that I got all that out of the way, let's start with consistency. Even shows that don't rely on overarching episodes or series-long running stories should manage to have some consistency with the style, characters, and setting of their original series. You wouldn't want to go into the movie lost or given the impression that you'd have to watch a long list of episodes before watching the film. The first thing that comes to mind is probably the worst adaptation ever, The Last Airbender. Yeah, I'm not calling it Avatar because it's another movie that did that, and it's called Last Airbender because basically, that's how inconsistent it is to the original series. The movie failed because it didn't capture the style of storytelling, characters, or setting. Every once in a while you get a screenshot or glimpse into something that could be perceived as similar. But that's it, it's just a glimpse. Nothing about the way the movie was consistent to the tone or feeling of Book 1. It's as uncomparable to the source material as the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Okay, there's Italian Plumbers. Go with that. Cool. Now take a movie like The Chipmunk Adventure. It captures the tone and feel of its animated series. What's the show about? Singing chipmunks living with their adopted musician of a father. Did the movie feature that? Absolutely. In fact, staying to these core elements can make a mediocre movie like the 2007 remake somewhat work. Yeah, this movie's not good, but it does have some consistency to the core elements of Alvin and the Chipmunks. 3 singing chipmunks who live with the musician of a father. There you go. Jason Lee may have played the movie's version of Dave Seville too crass and unpathetic to the 3. This is saying a lot when you're supposed to be based on the series' creator. Now, it's somewhat made up for this in a scene where they create the Christmas song, but for the brief moment, seeing them take a moment created from the 60s and give it a big screen treatment was not only endearing, but made me think about how cool it was to see this franchise come from the 60s up to today. Did it save me from the crap eating and pizza toots? Oh no. And yeah, Google pizza toots. Just have fun with that. This brings me to the second point of what makes a good cartoon adaptation. What's the point of seeing our favorite cartoons onto the big screen? What can taking a cartoon that lasts 10 to 20 minutes over the course of 12 to 20 episodes per season do that's worth seeing for an hour and a half in theaters? 2 of the Rugrats movies worked because they went out of their way to improve the animation and challenge their characters with situations that couldn't be resolved on TV. They didn't need to send a big name like Bruce Willis to sell the movie or smell-o-vision like in the Rugrats Go Wild. For the first time, we get to see Tommy and Chucky challenged with having new family members. Tommy had to compromise his sense of leadership to deal with his brother Dill, which is the opposite to Chucky since he's gaining a new parent figure and learning a new sense of leadership. These were things we wanted to see from the Rugrats while not being too unexpected or easily resolved in a TV special. Take that and compare it to every Transformers movie ever made. The problems with Transformers is that every episode there's a new threat in the ever-going battle between Autobots and Decepticons. Awesome. What was the first film about? A new threat to the ever-going battle between the Autobots and Decepticons. Now you can include killing off an established character as a big change, but truth be told, because they're killing robots left and right, it didn't leave much of an impact. especially when in traditional comic book fashion they come back a season or two later when sales aren't doing too hot. Even Michael Bay took this idea and basically did the same thing over again. Same battles, same losses, who cares at this point? Now that brings me back to Jimmy Neutron. According to the show's creator, having them make the movie for television was always the intention. Therefore, when you saw it in theaters, it didn't make sense when it being compared to high-caliber animated films. Giving Patrick Stewart voice work and adding an extra render and texture didn't really help the film. Though, getting nominated for Best Animated Film when that category was first introduced, that makes no sense. Finally, we get the quality that defines it all together. Bigger may not always be better, but it's not a terrible idea. Remember in Jurassic Park when Dr. Ian Malcolm says just because you can make giant dinosaurs doesn't mean you should? There you go. Don't get me wrong, seeing bigger changes is amazing. Like I said before, the animation in the Chipmunk Adventure was an added bonus we can be grateful for, as well as for the Rugrats. However, it ain't the focus. You could throw a planet-sized robot, epic 80s soundtrack, along with neat celebrity voice work, but it ain't gonna change the fact that it still doesn't overcome the film's flaws. When you know what to change from a big screen adaptation without taking away the style and characters that made us love them in the first place, then you're doing fine. The SpongeBob movies knew this, which is why as far as adaptations go, they work well. It's not too far off that having a big budget animation in comparison to the traditional 12 frames per second, since this is something the shows exploit dozens of times, just not in a bigger scale from the movie. I love how in a movie like Rocky and Bullwinkle, where they kept the consistency and tone of the original while also making the story fit an hour-and-a-half runtime, it's the fact that they had a big-name celebrity like Robert De Niro play fearless leader. Y'all wanna know the irony to this? Robert De Niro was the biggest fan of Rocky and Bullwinkle, and this was like a passion project for him. He was a producer who just self-inserted himself. If he stayed producer and laid off certain pointless celebrity cameos, who knows, maybe this movie would've worked better. So if you want to make a good movie based on a cartoon series, make sure you know what worked about the original show, what's the point of seeing it on the big screen, and finally, bigger don't always mean better. Remember those things and you're on your way to making a good movie. Take it from this guy over here. I'm Joey Tedesco and thanks for watching this editorial on the Cartoon Palooza.